I still remember the exact moment when the automatic doors of St. Vincent Medical Center burst open that Friday night. Two paramedics were sprinting through with a gurney, their faces tight with urgency as they wheeled in a teenage boy whose body was locked in violent seizure. The waiting room fell silent except for the rhythmic beeping of the heart monitor they had attached to him. Then, cutting through that critical moment like nails on a chalkboard, came the voice that would haunt our emergency room for the next 3 hours. "Excuse me, my cough is an emergency, too." The woman actually stepped in front of the gurney, swinging her designer purse like she was directing traffic at a four-way stop. "My name is Ryan Calloway, and I've been an ER nurse at St. Vincent in Cedar Ridge, Ohio, for 6 years. I've seen knife wounds, car accidents, and once a guy who superglued his hand to his face on a dare. But nothing, absolutely nothing, prepared me for Melinda Proctor." She stood there in the middle of our emergency room entrance, 5 feet 4 inches of pure entitlement wrapped in a leopard print cardigan. Her bleached blonde hair was teased so high it added another 3 inches to her height. A rhinestone-studded face mask dangled uselessly below her chin while she waved her acrylic nails in the air, each one painted with tiny pictures of hearts. At 49 years old, according to the intake form she'd filled out earlier, she described herself as a holistic wellness coach and spiritual healer. The waiting room that night was already a circus. We had 2 drunk college students who'd fallen off the same skateboard, an elderly man named Harold with a fishhook embedded in his thumb, a pregnant woman with false labor pains, and at least 4 people with various flu symptoms. It was 11:47 p.m. on a Friday, which meant we were operating at maximum chaos. And now we had Melinda. As I helped the paramedics maneuver the seizing teenager through triage, Melinda's voice followed us like a siren. "Hello. I've been sitting here coughing for 2 whole days. If I don't get seen right now, I might just sue this entire hospital for medical neglect." Without breaking stride, I called back over my shoulder in my calmest professional voice, "Ma'am, active seizures take immediate priority over non-emergency symptoms. Someone will be with you as soon as possible." She stomped her bedazzled sandal against the linoleum floor so hard that several people looked up from their phones. "Well, my cough is contagious. That boy can't spread his seizures to everyone, but I could be spreading pneumonia or tuberculosis or who knows what else." Right at that very second, the entire waiting room turned to stare at her. A college kid in a backwards baseball cap whispered to his friend, loud enough for everyone to hear, "Bro, did she really just compare her cough to a seizure?" We got the teenager, whose name was Tyler Morrison according to his terrified mother running alongside us, into Trauma Bay 3. His seizure was entering its 4th minute, which meant we were racing against permanent brain damage. I grabbed the intravenous kit while Dr. Patricia Novak prepared the anticonvulsant medication. Tyler's mother was crying, holding his hand and whispering prayers. After we stabilized Tyler with lorazepam and got his seizure under control, I headed back to the waiting room to check on incoming patients. What I found stopped me dead in my tracks. Melinda had commandeered a wheelchair that belonged to Harold, the elderly gentleman with the fishhook injury, and was now sitting in it, dramatically fanning herself with a medical pamphlet about flu symptoms. Harold was standing awkwardly to the side, leaning heavily on his cane, too polite to say anything, but clearly in pain. His wife, Margaret, was shooting daggers at Melinda with her eyes. "Ma'am," I said, approaching Melinda with what remained of my patience, "that wheelchair belongs to another patient who actually needs it." She clutched the armrests like she was superglued to them. "I need it more. I'm having breathing difficulties from my cough. This is discrimination. I know my ADA rights. The Americans with Disabilities Act doesn't cover stealing mobility aids from actual disabled patients," I replied, helping Harold back into his rightful chair while his wife muttered something that sounded suspiciously like choice words under her breath. Melinda stood up and planted herself directly in front of the triage desk. "If you don't treat me first, I'm calling Channel 7 News. I'll tell them all about how St. Vincent lets people die in the waiting room while playing favorites." That's when Shauna Jackson entered the scene. Our charge nurse was a force of nature. 5 feet 11 inches with arms that could wrestle a grown man into restraints if needed and a voice that could cut through any chaos. She'd been working emergency rooms for 23 years and had seen every type of difficult patient imaginable. She rolled up to Melinda with the determination of someone who'd already dealt with 3 cardiac arrests that shift and had absolutely 0 patients left for nonsense. "Ma'am," Shauna said, her voice carrying the kind of authority that made even the drunk college kid sit up straighter, "let me explain something to you. You just stole a wheelchair from an elderly patient. You physically obstructed emergency medical care for a minor in active seizure. You're now threatening our staff while making false claims about your medical condition. That's theft, interference with emergency services, and disorderly conduct. So, I'm going to give you one choice. You can either sit down quietly and wait your turn like everyone else, or security can escort you out, and we can add trespassing to that list." The waiting room had gone completely silent. Everyone was watching like this was the season finale of their favorite medical drama. Someone had actually taken out their phone and was recording. Melinda's face turned 3 shades of red before settling on purple. "This is a public hospital. You can't kick out a sick woman. I pay taxes. I want to speak to your manager. I want the head of the hospital down here right now." Shauna didn't even blink. "I am the manager on duty. And you're absolutely right, this is a hospital, which is exactly why we don't tolerate people who endanger actual emergency patients with their behavior." She nodded to our security guards, Marcus and Antoine, who had been watching from their post. They approached Melinda with the practiced calm of people who'd removed plenty of unruly visitors before. "Don't you dare touch me," Melinda shrieked, backing toward the exit while pointing at everyone. "I have a cough. I could have the plague. You're all going to get sued. Every last one of you." Marcus, who was built like a linebacker but had the patience of a kindergarten teacher, spoke gently. "Ma'am, we're not going to touch you if you leave voluntarily, but you need to leave now." As security escorted her toward the door, she kept shouting, "This is unconstitutional. You can't deny someone. I have a right to cough first." Harold, still in his wheelchair with the fishhook glinting under the fluorescent lights, called out in his gravelly voice, "Lady, I've got a hook in my thumb, and even I'm not complaining as much as you." The waiting room erupted in laughter. Even Margaret cracked a smile. One of the college kids started a slow clap that quickly spread through the room. Melinda was escorted out to the parking lot, where she spent the next 20 minutes pacing back and forth while recording herself on her phone, ranting about the grave injustice she'd suffered. We could see her through the windows, gesticulating wildly while occasionally fake coughing for emphasis. Back inside, I returned to check on Tyler. His seizure had fully stopped, and his vital signs were stabilizing. His mother grabbed my hand, tears streaming down her face. "Thank you. Thank God you got him in when you did. That woman out there, was she really trying to go before my son?" I nodded, and she shook her head in disbelief. "Some people have no shame." 2 hours passed. We treated Harold's fishhook injury, sent the college kids home with their scraped knees bandaged, and had just finished admitting Tyler for overnight observation when the automatic doors opened again. There stood Melinda, clutching her throat dramatically and making exaggerated choking gestures. She stumbled toward the triage desk, gasping theatrically, "Can't breathe. Choking. Dying." Shauna looked up from her paperwork, completely unfazed. She picked up her radio and said in the most bored tone imaginable, "Security to the ER entrance. She's back. And call Cedar Ridge Police Department while you're at it." Within minutes, 2 police officers arrived. Officer Jennifer Huang and Officer Derek Thompson walked in just as Melinda was in the middle of her performance, now claiming she was having an allergic reaction to the air outside. Officer Huang pulled out her notepad. "Ma'am, we've received multiple complaints about you causing a disturbance, making false emergency claims, and refusing to leave when asked." "I'm sick," Melinda protested, her fake choking suddenly forgotten. Strange how your choking stopped the moment we arrived, Officer Thompson observed dryly. After reviewing security footage and taking statements from staff, the officers informed Melinda she was being charged with disorderly conduct, criminal trespassing, and filing false emergency claims. The last charge was particularly serious in Ohio, carrying potential jail time and hefty fines. As they placed her in handcuffs, Melinda started crying real tears for the first time all night. "You can't arrest me. I'm a wellness coach. I have clients. I have a reputation. Should have thought about that before you tried to prevent emergency treatment for a minor," Officer Huang replied, reading Melinda her rights. 3 weeks later, I heard through the hospital grapevine about Melinda's day in court. She'd been found guilty on all charges. The judge, apparently fed up with her interrupting the proceedings to complain about the courthouse's air quality, sentenced her to 30 days in jail with 25 suspended, 500 hours of community service, specifically at a hospital to learn proper emergency room etiquette, and a fine of $8,500. The local news picked up the story after the waiting room video went viral, and her holistic wellness coaching business collapsed within days. Her professional certification board revoked her license after reviewing the footage of her claiming various fake illnesses, stating that she violated their code of ethics. She was permanently banned from St. Vincent Medical Center and 2 other hospitals in the network, requiring her to drive 45 minutes to the next county for any future medical needs.